My father purposely watched my mother die of a cerebral hemorrhage in order to have a son. He even brazenly had an affair with his mistress at the funeral. Little 3 kept provoking me in every possible way. Reluctantly, I had to intervene. Take them, one by one, send to hell. I just received the news that my mother passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage, and I'm completely stunned. Although my mother's blood pressure is a bit high, she pays special attention to health preservation, so it's unlikely that she would suddenly have a cerebral hemorrhage. Unable to suppress my sorrow, my husband and I quickly took a month's leave and hurried back to my hometown. I cried so hard on the way that I fainted from being unable to breathe. My husband stoically endured his grief and told me to take care of myself, since I have just become pregnant. Yes, that's right. My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and we finally had our first child. And that's how it is. I've been ignoring my family lately, and I didn't expect to get such bad news. The funeral was held in the hometown, as the venue was ultimately a bit larger. After all, in our place, the dead are revered. When I arrived home, my dad's eyes were swollen from crying. A middle-aged, chubby woman in her 50s is supporting my father. There was a young woman following behind, who resembled her in appearance and voice, clearly her daughter. This mother and daughter are not our relatives, but their actions are too intimate. I looked at my father with a puzzled expression. My father explained with a choked voice, because we are often not at home, they hired a live-in caretaker, Aunt Lou and her daughter Lily He, to come to their home and take care of the elderly couple. I nodded without much thought, watched my mother's last moments in tears, and then proceeded through the funeral process as it should be. My mom seems to have already put on makeup and is lying peacefully there. My husband suddenly tugged at the hem of my clothes and softly asked, "You just learned the news and haven't reacted to it yet, that's understandable. But Dad has been slow for 2 days, how come Aunt Lou is handling all his affairs?" As expected. Receiving guests and registering silk offerings are tasks that should have been handled by my father, the host, but Aunt Lou did them effortlessly. What is more surprising is that not only my father thinks it's normal, but the relatives who come and go also don't say anything. I suppressed the doubts in my heart and said with a lump in my throat, after all these years of marital relationship, my dad may not have gotten over it just yet. Indeed, my parents are highly educated intellectuals. I lived in a boarding school since I was young, and didn't spend much time at home, but according to my mother, my father, although a bit patriarchal, they still treat each other respectfully. The 2 people in this third-tier city have saved up a few properties and hundreds of thousands in savings, and can be considered to be living without worries about food and clothing. By the time it was late at night, the guests had all dispersed. I was worried that my elderly father might get emotional, so I persuaded him to go back to his room and rest. I decided to have Aunt Lou take care of my dad. However, the priest who presided over the ceremony told me, "Every hour, the family must come out and kneel and worship. You should still talk to your dad and tell him to persist, not to rest tonight." I can only let my husband continue to kneel and worship there, while I go upstairs with red eyes to find my father. I don't know how, but as I was about to reach the door to my dad's room, I unconsciously lightened my footsteps. To my great surprise, the room that I thought would be somber or quiet was filled with the sounds of a man and woman playfully chatting. I could hear the man and woman inside talking. "Darling, let me hug you soon. I haven't hugged you all day today." "Disgusting, you're still at your wife's funeral and you're not afraid at all." That male voice continued to speak. "I'm not afraid at all. When she was alive, she had to serve me. Now that she's gone, she can't serve me anymore. What's wrong with finding someone else?" Then, the sound of them chasing and playing resounded from inside. That voice clearly belongs to my father and the nanny Aunt Lou. I was almost about to explode with anger upon hearing this, and the tears just wouldn't stop flowing. My mother has been with him for decades, and suffered greatly in her youth. To my shock and dismay, my father did something so outrageous, even before her body had grown cold. But considering that there are still many strangers below, I don't want to tear my face off in public. I heavily walked up the stairs again, knocked on the door, and called out, "Dad, the master tells us to go down." The sound inside had long since stopped, and then my father anxiously said, "I understand, you can go down first." I couldn't help it and deliberately said, "Dad, I called Aunt Lou to accompany you. Where is she? Is she inside? Let's go down together." Immediately, a sound of something being knocked over was heard from inside, and then my father called out guiltily, "I didn't see her either. Go ahead, I'll wash my face and then go down." I gripped my fist, and my nails dug deeply into my flesh, but I felt no pain. I never thought my dad could tell such a lie. After going down, my tears just flowed down. My husband was really scared, and he kept comforting me for a long time. Soon, my dad and Aunt Lou came out one after the other. Aunt Lou said awkwardly, "I just went to the restroom." I didn't say anything, I just glanced at her slightly and held back. Today is my mother's funeral, not the time to break ties. After much difficulty, the entire tedious process finally ended in one night. I am on the verge of collapse, and my husband helped me back to the room. He then went to the bathroom to wet a towel and wipe my face. I just lay down on the bed, felt something uncomfortable, reached behind my back, and actually pulled out a piece of lingerie. I hadn't reacted yet when Lily, Aunt Lou's daughter, suddenly barged in and rudely snatched the underwear from my hands. She rolled her eyes and said, "Just touching other people's things, that's so uncultured." I was so angry that I cried, "How did your things end up in my room? You're the one who lacks manners." She sneered and said disdainfully that it wouldn't be for long. He turned around and left after saying that. I was angry and upset that she dared to bring undesirable people to my house, but her words reminded me of the character Sue Dashing from the TV series. The nanny gets close to the old man not for feelings, not for the person, but purely for the money. Could it be that Aunt Lou was behind this idea? When my husband came back, I hesitated for a moment and did not want him to know about our family's troubles, so I did not say anything. Soon, we entered into sleep. The pain of losing my mother still lingers in my heart. I often wake up with convulsions, feeling like I'm a stranger in my own dream. By noon, I really couldn't sleep anymore, so I got up. I'll ask my dad if my mom has left any message for me. When I was about to reach my father's room, I still lightened my footsteps, but unexpectedly I heard some movement from inside. "My dad, my baby, I love you." The sweet feminine voice spoke up, "Am I better or your wife?" My dad said without hesitation, "Of course it's you who is the best." My God, I can't believe it, is that really my own father in there? Aunt Lou, despite her advanced age, still tries to imitate a young girl with her squeaky voice. These two, shameless. The funeral proceedings have been completed. My father told me to go back to work, but I'm not at ease, so I found an excuse to stay a few more days. Aunt Lou and Lily clearly did not want me to stay, but because of my father's presence, they could only agree. Aunt Lou was busy in the kitchen as usual during dinner that day. When she brought the food to the dining table, the gold bracelet on her wrist caught my attention. Aunt Lou's bracelet is quite similar to the one my mom has. They are both bamboo designs. I didn't expect that. Before I could finish speaking, Aunt Lou's expression immediately changed, and she instinctively pulled her wrist back. My dad waved his hand, saying indifferently, "The designs of the bracelets are just those few, aren't they? What is similar?" I realized something was wrong, so I grabbed Aunt Lou's hand to go check. Aunt Lou let out a shrill scream and kept backing away. My dad hurriedly came up and pushed me away, frowning and saying, "And Wang, how have I been teaching you these years? How dare you so shamelessly snatch someone's gold bracelet?" I was pushed and stumbled, bumping against the edge of the table. But I couldn't afford the pain in my waist, could only lean on the table, tears gushing out, and shouting loudly, "This is my mother's gold bracelet, with my mother's initials on it. She is a thief." My dad stepped forward and said in a low voice, "It's not Aunt Lou who stole it. It was me who wanted to give it to her as a special gift because she takes care of me and your mother works so hard." Aunt Lou smugly raised her eyebrows at me from behind, as if challenging me. I took it. "What can you do to me? I looked at my father, choking back tears, word by word. This is the gift I gave to my mother, and even you cannot give it to someone else casually. If you don't return it to me, I'll report to the police that the bracelet was stolen. My father was originally glaring at me fiercely, with the attitude that if I dared to rush up to him, he would dare to take action again. Seeing my serious expression, she could only pull Aunt Lou aside and say something to her. Then, Aunt Lou angrily slammed the gold bracelet down on the table next to her. How stingy, no wonder he died, he deserved it. Rage shot straight to my temples, and I charged right up and slapped her hard across the face. The slap left half her face swollen and red, and she came to her senses lying on the ground kicking her legs and wailing. Look, everyone, someone is bullying the elderly, how terrible. I tried to help her take care of her parents with good intentions, but when she came back, she wanted to kill me. This wretched wench, is there no one to take care of her? Our village has the habit of keeping their doors open during the day. Aunt Lou's commotion quickly attracted a lot of neighbors to come and observe. I trembled with anger and shouted at her. You are paid to take care of my parents, and the pay is far above the market rate. You stole my mother's gold bracelet. I won't make a fuss about it, you're still impudent. I'll beat you, how about that? If you are not satisfied, we will report it to the police. Then, get out of my sight right now. Aunt Lou saw that I was stubborn and refused to eat, so she didn't dare call the police and instead quietly climbed back up. My dad wanted to say something beside me, but I glared at him directly, picked up his things, and told him to leave with me. My dad was afraid that I would really call the police, so he could only hurry up and run. Before leaving, he couldn't resist muttering a few words. Why would I need a partner if I had one? Just like your dead bitch of a mother. I strode across the room and slammed the door shut. My mother devoted her entire life to taking care of the family, and in return, she only got the title of spouse. My husband pulled me aside and gave me a massage on my waist, saying you should bear with it for now. There are still a lot of hidden stories here. It's better to keep her under our watchful eyes. I held my tongue and endured it, but when I thought about the gold bracelet, I secretly asked my husband to go to the bank and check the bank statement of my parents. Because I am an only child, the family's assets will not be protected from me, and I know the passwords to the family's bank cards. My husband was sent by me in a baffling way, and when he came back, his face was grave. I didn't pay attention to him and took a look at the itemized bill. Wow, there's less than 800,000 left in my account. It shows that 600,000 yuan was successfully transferred to an account belonging to someone named Lu Dahua a month ago. That Lu Dahua must be Aunt Lou. My husband said sternly. Dad has really lost his mind. We need to get that money back. Even if we don't come back, we have to take good care of the remaining money and real estate. At this time, the neighbor next door was quietly waving to me on the wall. She whispered, Dear, I don't know whether I should say it or not, but on the night before your mother died, I think I heard a lot of commotion at your place. It seems that your family's nanny, your dad and your mom had an argument, and that night I think I also heard the sound of them rushing out and closing the door. I was struck by lightning, as if something was rushing into my head. Yes, my mother has always been in good health. How did she suddenly have a cerebral hemorrhage? Could it be that something has stimulated them? I wanted to rush in and confront my father Aunt Lou on the spot, but my husband held me back, frustrated that I couldn't succeed. Why are you still so impulsive? We don't have any evidence right now. Let's not stir up a hornet's nest. In the evening, I saw Aunt Lou go out, and quickly gestured to my husband to follow her. I pretended I needed to go back to my room to rest, and quietly slipped into my parents' room. I couldn't find any evidence, but I didn't find anything. As I was searching, I heard my dad's and Aunt Lou's voices continuously approaching from outside the door. My husband, what's going on? Aunt Lou has come back and he didn't even tell me. I cursed my husband a few times, and I could only hide nervously under the bed. Then, a man and a woman quickly entered, embracing each other. The woman's delicate voice cried out in a coy tone. When is your daughter leaving? She makes me feel uncomfortable. My father took time out of his busy schedule to respond, coming soon, coming soon. I'll also have to get her to sign a waiver of inheritance declaration. I can't wait to get married to you and our little one. As soon as she leaves, let's get married and start our own family. I tightened my fist. My dad wanted to bypass me and give all the family property to Aunt Lou, this little cutie. At this moment, my husband sent me a video of Aunt Lou shopping at a luxury store. Since my dad gave her so much money, of course she can go shopping at luxury stores. It would be a waste of her efforts to care for my father. Wait, who is in the room right now? I mechanically raised my head, and sure enough, that young face belongs to Lily He. I am utterly astonished. It turns out that Lily He is not bringing shady characters back, but is simply having an affair with my father. No wonder they hired 2 live-in nannies. It turns out they have 2 wives for 1 husband. That mother-daughter pair is truly shameless. I thought about it, and then sent a message asking my husband to bring something and hurry back. The commotion on the bed is becoming increasingly absurd, and I am becoming increasingly numb to it. At the critical moment, the sound of firecrackers suddenly rang out from outside. The sound of the firecrackers was still very close, just like next to my ear. Even I, who was mentally prepared, was startled. I suddenly heard their curses. Well done. I discussed the information we had collected with my husband, and he scratched his head. Unfortunately, there is no surveillance at home, and we have no evidence. What can we do? I gritted my teeth and said, the heavenly net is vast and broad, letting nothing slip through. I can't find any fault with them. The next day at the dining table, my dad kept sighing and glancing at me from time to time. I already know his intentions, and I also know what kind of play he is acting, so I ate my meal without paying attention to him. Aunt Lou and Lily He exchanged a glance, but it was Lily He who couldn't hold back and directly said, Uncle Wang, what's wrong with you today? Go ahead and say it. Let's see if everyone can help you share the load. She looked at me and said in a calm and composed manner, some people don't know to care a little about the elderly at home. Unlike me, I can hold you in the palm of my hand. Someone brought up a topic, and my father pretended to say, Daughter, since your mother passed away, my heart has never been at ease. I'm afraid that one day, I too will follow her. I interrupted his speech. Then you go with him. You have been respectful to each other for so many years, a divine couple. I cannot stop you. Before my dad could say anything, Lily He immediately accused me. How can you talk to your father like that? If my father were still alive, I would certainly be very filial to him. My dad looked at her with approval, then glared at me sternly. Look how sensible she is. I wiped my mouth slowly and disdainfully said, Yes, you are very filial and understanding. You really like to kiss up to my dad, huh? What is it? Do you like that old person smell, and want to become my stepmom? At first, she had a smug look on her face, but when she heard the rest, her face suddenly went pale. Aunt Lou next to me hurriedly said, How dare you speak like that? My dad's face flashed with guilt, and he quickly scolded me in a loud voice. What are you talking about? Slandered the young lady, apologized. He softened his tone when he saw that my expression was not what he had expected. Hi, you have already started a family, and in the big city, you don't have to worry about food and drink. I'm very relieved, and I can't really help much. I don't want anything else. It's just that all these family properties were built by your mother and me with our own hands. Now that your mother has passed away, I've also felt that my body and legs are not as good as they used to be over the years, but all these family properties were built up by your mother and me, so I want to sell those houses and come back here to retire. I sneered and retorted, Do you want me to raise another young girl for you again? He was about to get angry and slammed the table, but was stopped by the recording I presented. My darling, I love you. Which one is better, me or your wife? Hello, of course. Their faces turned pale and then flushed as they listened to the voices in the recording. Seeing this, Lily He simply tore off her mask. Yes, your dad and I are together, and I'm also pregnant with your younger brother. Your mother has passed away, so why would you try to stop your father from finding happiness in his later years? Lily, he said, and Aunt Lou showed no surprise. It seems she already knew about this. Is there anything else unclear? This mother and daughter pair just want to use the fact of giving birth to a son to tie down my father, the patriarch, in order to profit from it. Aunt Lou is already quite old, so she can only let her own daughter come. I coldly laugh. I certainly won't stop him from finding his late life happiness, but just a few days after his wife's death, he has a child, and he acts up in his wife's shrine. This must be the work of the cute one. Seeing me so stubborn and unyielding, Aunt Lou spoke without restraint. Your face is so disgusting, just like your dead mother. You should just go with your dead mother. I slapped her really hard for insulting a deceased person in such a low and disrespectful way. I still can't let go of my anger, so I directly pick up the warm soup and pour it over her head. She screamed and cursed in place, wanting to rush over and hit back hard, but was quickly subdued by my husband. She could only glare at me with the vengeful gaze of someone who had lost their father. And the person who was pretending to hit me earlier has already sat back down and become a retracted turtle. Lily, he originally expected her mother to take action, and was happy to reap the benefits, but now, seeing this reversal, her face not only did not show the sadness of her mother's injury, but instead she excitedly elbowed my father with a look of excitement on her face. I see my father's tangled expression as if he were brewing some rhetoric, and without any courtesy, I directly use my words to block the reproach that is about to come out of his mouth. I'll be happy to sign the waiver of inheritance statement, but only if Lou Dahua kneels down and bows to me twice to apologize. Aunt Lou shouted, "You little darling, let the elders kneel to you. Aren't you afraid of dying tonight and being taken away by the king of hell?" My dad and Lily, he were clearly not expecting that I already knew about their plan, with a look of astonishment on their faces. After a long while, my dad tentatively said, "You've already cursed and hit him, why not just leave it at that?" I shrugged my shoulders. It doesn't matter, since the real estate can't be sold, I'm not in a hurry. After all, this is tens of millions. Lily, he gave Aunt Lou a subtle look. Aunt Lou trembled her lips, but finally she knelt down and said, "I'm sorry, I was wrong, please forgive me." I felt great seeing her kneel down and crush her self-esteem. "Lily," he said, gritting her teeth, "are you satisfied now?" I nodded with a smile, then said in their hopeful gaze, "I was just joking with you." I lowered my head, bowing my eyes, and whispered in Aunt Lou's ear, "What does it matter if you have a daughter? You still have to grovel like a lapdog, don't you? I'm different. If anyone insults my mother, I'll fight them to the death." I and my husband left proudly, completely ignoring their curses behind us. Soon, I received a call from my father, and he demanded that I return all the savings to him. I calmly said, "Dad, do you really think it was your personal charm that captivated Lily? She's just after your money." My father has always considered himself an intellectual, believing that he is still very charming, and naturally holds his head high, saying that theirs is true love. I questioned him mercilessly. "She's just a young girl. It's not that she's after your money, is it that she's after you not bathing, that she likes to eat fatty pork, that you have no conscience, or that you're old?" He actually said that it was because of your father's personal charm. I know you're feeling distressed, but daughter, the child in her belly is after all my own. A man must carry on his lineage, stubborn and unyielding. My mother has taught me since childhood that family and everything should prosper. I do not wish to lose my father right after losing my mother, and I do not wish for the money my mother worked hard for all her life to end up in someone else's pocket. I swallowed my anger and said, "For your old age, let's make a bet. If she can get through a month of hardship with you, I'll give you all the money." My dad said suspiciously, "You wouldn't be trying to deceive me, would you?" I find it hard to believe that Lily he is sincere towards my father. I thought about it and made a phone call. My husband was quietly applauding me in the corner. My wife is indeed a zhuge liang among women. I glared at him. It's not the man who caused trouble. We women have been pushed to this point. After hanging up the phone, I transferred all of my father's savings, leaving him with just a little living expenses. Providing for a household's expenses is certainly sufficient, but with Lily he and Aunt Lou involved, it may not be so straightforward. I thought Lily he could at least hold on for 2 weeks, but unexpectedly she couldn't even hold on for a week. She was crying with tears streaming down her face, pulling my dad in front of my neighborhood. My dad was exasperated trying to console her. When she saw me, she pretended to be pitiful and cried out, "And Wang, I beg you, it's fine if you look down on me. But after all, he's your own father. Please give him and the child in my belly a chance at life." She deliberately leaned closer to me, bulging her belly, convinced that I wouldn't dare to harm her. The plan is already in execution. I don't need to argue with her again, so I bypass her directly. To my surprise, her eyes darted around, and after I went past her, she just lay on the ground, crying, "Oh dear, oh dear. And Wang, how cruel your heart is. The one in my belly is your younger brother. Why must you take such drastic measures?" My father directly rushed over and slapped me hard on the face. The onlookers have gathered around, and they are pointing and gesturing at me. How can she treat her own father and stepmother this way, when she looks so refined? Yes, that's right. The young people nowadays only think about what their parents have done for them, without considering their parents' happiness in their later years. Hitting her well, if I had a daughter like that, I would have strangled her to death long ago. Lily he on the ground has a smug expression. I covered my swollen face and glared at my father in grief and anger. After all, this is my own father. I don't feel comfortable fighting back in public. I laid on the ground clutching my stomach and cried loudly while covering my face. "Dad, I know you hate that I exposed your affair with her at my mom's funeral. But the one in my belly is still your great-grandchild. How can you be so ruthless?" My dad quickly started flailing his arms in a flustered manner, but I pretended to take out my phone to record him. He dragged Lily and slipped away. I thought Lily he would no longer cause any trouble. Unexpectedly, Lily his friend circle, which had been quiet for a few days, started posting photos of luxury items like designer bags again. She also posts selfies in the middle of the night, in which she is barely recognizable. All she wants is deep love. Have I gone the wrong way? Is it still possible to correct it? There is a feeling of a peacock spreading its tail when choosing a mate. According to my understanding, Lily he has become much colder towards my father, and has even used the excuse of her pregnancy to drive him out of the room. Due to lack of money, Aunt Lou no longer has a good attitude towards my father, and she scolds him all day long. My father has become increasingly silent, but he still does all the chores in that household, even having to kneel down to scrub the toilet. Back in the day, when my mother was still alive, my father had never done any menial work, and his heirs were indeed very high. I really don't understand, why do I need to ask him this again? He has his own pension, and he can live a comfortable life on his own. He took a long time to reply to me. The importance of men to sons is something that women do not understand. "Daughter, you must give your son-in-law a child with a penis, otherwise you will be just like your mother in the future." I turn off my phone. I never expected that, even after all these years, my highly intellectual father is still so persistent about this matter of his son. I twisted my husband's ear, and he clasped his hands and begged me for mercy. No, in my view, having a son or a daughter is the same. Wife, have whatever child you want. In 2 more days, my dad frantically called me, demanding that I take the money back. He anxiously said, "Give me back the money, I won't gamble anymore." I leisurely said, "Have you finally realized that she likes your money?" My dad seems to be suppressing his anger. "No, she really likes me. Why doesn't she like other people's money, but only likes my money?" "Of course, it's because you are the easiest to deceive." I haven't spoken yet, but I heard Lily he shouting over there, "Get away, you old bastard, you're no longer worthy of me." My dad's flattering tone came through the phone. "Baby, didn't you say before that you loved me the most? Are you recently experiencing postpartum depression? Wait for me, I will have my daughter bring it over right away." Immediately start screaming at me, send the money over to me right now, or else I'll kill you. When I arrived at the scene, I saw Lily he nestled in the arms of a tall, wealthy, and handsome man. They stood in front of an extremely expensive sports car. The rich and handsome man was head to toe in branded goods, with a luxurious watch on his wrist. When they saw me coming, they subtly lowered their tone. I've got goosebumps. I quickly turn away. Lily he raised her eyelids and gave an indifferent look when she saw me come. And my dad was frantic next to me, sweat pouring out of his forehead. When I entered, he let out a big sigh of relief, and ordered me to immediately transfer the money back to my card. I saw my father mocking. I didn't expect. She has become someone else's mistress. Dad, you are still deeply in love with her. No, it should be said that he is deeply devoted to the child in her belly. Lily had a crescent-shaped smile, filled with smugness. Well, it's not because you're not a man. Even if I have already found a new home, your father still wants to give me all the property he struggled with your mother for a lifetime. She whispered in my ear. Your mother suddenly suffered a cerebral hemorrhage at that time, and your father and I were right there watching her pass away. Even so, what can you do to me? He hid behind the handsome and wealthy man and coyly called out. Is she going to hit someone? I'm so scared. Darling, you must protect me. My dad immediately rushed over and slapped me, saying, You're out of line, you actually want to hit someone. Lily is still carrying my precious son in her belly. I touched the swollen face and said, Are you sure the child is yours, given her flirtatious behavior? It would be more reliable to do a paternity test. My dad hesitated. Lily he was anxious and wanted to scold him. That rich and handsome man was comforting her and stroking her back. The handsome and wealthy man took her hand and gently kissed her fingers. Then he said to her tenderly, Dear, don't be afraid. Didn't we say that no matter what, we won't leave each other? No matter how you were in the past, I will only regret not being there for you when you needed me the most. Lily he, holding her designer handbag, spoke to my father with confidence and pride. I do not need to do a paternity test. The child in my belly is not actually yours. How absurd. You should take a look at yourself. You're already so old. How could you possibly get me pregnant? So what if he's my ex-boyfriend? My current boyfriend is a true high-income handsome man. He exposed a little bit between his fingers. It's enough for your family to eat for a year. Hearing these distressing words, the expression on my father's face became increasingly grim. What man could bear being mocked in public? My father rushed over angrily, wanting to hit her. That wealthy and handsome man grabbed my father's hand, pushed it forcefully, and my father fell to the ground in a disheveled manner. Lily he was even more smug. She walked up and insulted my father by slapping his face, and uttered 3 words one by one. Old thing. On my way to send my dad back, he was as heavy as a stagnant pool. I said comfortingly, Dad, she just doesn't understand your goodness. After that, you can move in with me and I'll take good care of you, so you can enjoy your twilight years. When he turned around, my father's eyes were slightly red. Daughter, I never expected that I would do so many unreasonable things, yet you are still so good to me. My eyes flashed briefly. We are blood-related father and daughter. Who else would I be good to if not you? Yes, my dad murmured. After returning, he stubbornly insisted on transferring all fixed assets to my name. I tried to refuse it repeatedly, but in the end I couldn't go against my father, and I reluctantly accepted it. While my dad was out, I called that number from last time. The task is accomplished, it can now be concluded. Not long after, my dad received another call from Lily he, where she was crying and wailing. Old Wang, you're all I have left. Apparently, after Lily he went home happily with that rich and handsome man, her mother Aunt Lu also moved in with them. At first, the 3 people were living quite happily, but later Lily he gradually discovered something was not right. She had several times discovered her boyfriend and her mother coming out of the room one after the other, and her mother's face would sometimes be flushed with a pinkish glow. Lily he, who has been through a maze of flowers, knows this all too well. After they entered the room again, Lily he rushed in and scratched the wealthy and handsome man furiously. To my surprise, this time the rich and handsome man was not as gentle and considerate as usual, and said rather impatiently, "I don't mind that you are a withered and faded flower. Why are you still making a fuss? It is your blessing that you, mother and daughter, can serve me together." Aunt Lou also spoke earnestly and sincerely. "Daughter, you're pregnant and can't serve your son-in-law." The source text translates to, "Fertilized water does not flow into other people's fields. I'll help you keep your son-in-law, so he won't be lured away by other women." Isn't that better? Lily he endured it, but later she found that the rich and handsome became less and less patient with her, and instead grew closer and closer to her mother. Aunt Lou even told Lily he cheerfully, "You are still young, you can find a better man. I am old now, and have no more chances. This man, leave him to me." She cried, she fussed, but nothing helped. The wealthy and handsome man became increasingly abusive towards her. Later, he got bored and directly took all of their savings, then disappeared without a trace. Lily he is now wandering outside while pregnant, along with her mother with whom she has already broken off relations. There was really no other way, she had to call my father's phone again. She coyly said, "Darling, actually all those things I said before were lies. Can I come back to you and give you another big, chubby son?" My father's face is gloomy. "Come back, I still love you." Lily he believed it to be true and returned to the old house with a joyful heart. After returning home, she greeted me with the manner of a hostess. "Go pack my luggage, prepare some hot water for me, I'm going to rest now." I asked with a laugh, "In what capacity are you ordering me to do something?" "Lily, it is only natural that I will soon marry your father, and I will be your stepmother. Isn't it normal for you to help me with things?" I couldn't be bothered to deal with her, so she went to my dad to tattle, stomping her foot and swaying her hips. "Dear, your daughter doesn't respect me at all, so what's the point of me staying here? I'm leaving now. Your dad looks unwell, so you should go." Lily he opened her mouth, not expecting my father to be so merciless to her. But she didn't dare to just turn around and leave. After all, if she left, she would have nowhere to go. My father saw through her thoughts and sneered disdainfully. From that day on, my father often made her kneel down to scrub the stairs and floors. Even though Aunt Lou said she wanted to help, he did not allow it. I laughed joyfully as I watched Lily he, with a big belly, working hard on her knees. She glared at me angrily. "Definitely you little cutie badmouthed me, which is why your dad tortures me. He definitely wouldn't treat me this way if he didn't have to." "Yes, I said you are very despicable, so despicable that even the stray dogs are cleaner than you." She looked at me with hatred, then quickly smiled with a sense of accomplishment. "As long as I give birth to a son for your father in the future, his family property will naturally fall into my hands. I'm going to sweep you out the door." I turned around and went to my father to complain. I shed false tears and said to my father, "Dad, as your daughter, I definitely want you to have a happy and fulfilling later years, but I heard Lily he tell Aunt Lou that once her child is born, she will dump the child on you and then go find a rich and handsome man herself." My dad was already resentful about this matter, and also felt ashamed about my mother's passing. After hearing this, he had no doubt about the truthfulness of my words. He went to Lily's place in a furious rage to settle the score. I sat calmly in the living room drinking tea, listening to the furious shots of my father beating someone and the continuous cries of Lily he, feeling even more pleased. "Mom, did you hear that? Your daughter is taking revenge for you." After that day, Lily he's situation became even more tragic. Not only do I have to drag my bulky body to do a lot of housework, but I also have to get beaten up from time to time at night. Her appearance has also become increasingly poor. Even when she was pregnant, her face and body were often bruised and discolored. To humiliate Lily he, my dad even made her kneel down and then forcefully extinguished the cigarette butts on her body. Lily's movements are becoming more and more like a living dead, almost doing these chores mechanically. I am very satisfied to see this couple of dogs end up loving and killing each other. It's time to pull out the last trick. While everyone was present, I gently said to my father, "Dad, the property you transferred to me a while ago, I have rented out all of it. I will transfer the rent to your card later." Lily's usually lifeless eyes suddenly flashed with hatred, and she stared at my father intently. Yes, the reason she has been so tolerant and patient during this period is that she believes she still has a chance to obtain all of my father's property. Now, I will tell her directly. Your hopes have all been shattered, and during this period you have been like a clown, begging for the favor of a useless master like a dog. This is definitely the final straw that breaks the camel's back. I used the excuse of having something to do and returned to my own home that day. Then, I opened the security camera I had installed long ago at my hometown and started watching while snacking on sunflower seeds. Indeed, that evening, my father carefully went down the stairs along the handrail to use the bathroom. Lily, he appeared like a demon from hell, silently emerging behind my father. She looked at the man in front of her with resentment, the man who had made her life so miserable. Then, slowly, she stretched out her hands, a gentle push. My dad was like a broken kite, he just rolled down the stairs, only managing to let out a cry of agony. Lily, he was muttering to herself, I don't want to, it's all because of you forcing me. I immediately stopped my hands, my heart racing. After all, he is my biological father, I just want them to argue, and then my dad will drive them out. I never thought I would get involved with my dad. I quickly dialed the emergency phone number, urging them to act faster. The police car, ambulance, and I rushed to the scene. When the door opened, Lily, he was still hugging her knees in the stairwell, murmuring, "It's all your fault, it's all your fault." Aunt Lou was diligently cleaning up the bright red liquid. She sat down helplessly when she saw the police come in, saying, "It's over, everything is over." I rushed over and saw my dad's body struggling to breathe on the ground, my eyes wet. Blood is thicker than water. I desperately cried out to the doctors behind me, "Please, I don't care how much it costs, you must save my father's life." I angrily walked over to Lily, who was acting crazy and laughing foolishly, as if she really didn't understand anything. "It is all because of her that we have lost our family and ruin." Thinking of this, I vengefully took out my phone and showed her the photos inside. "Look at the money I spent on the male model with a nice butt to try to make you like me, and you abandoned your wealthy father with a house. Why did you do this? If you can persevere and endure a few more years, then how many of those male models won't be able to do that later on?" Lily's foolish gaze finally had a glimmer of light. In the dark place she was like a demon from hell, terrifying. It's you, it's all your fault that I'm in this state." He jumped up and viciously grabbed my neck. The speed is simply not something a pregnant woman can have. But there were so many police officers at the scene, and they quickly restrained her. Killing someone in front of the police is really arrogant. Lily, he continued to struggle, and blood quickly flowed from her lower body. She had a miscarriage. Killing someone in front of the police is really arrogant. What a pity for a time of such youthfulness and beauty. I sighed and withdrew, following the ambulance to the hospital. The doctor came out and regretfully told me that your father's arrival was too late, and that he will become a vegetable in the future. My tears flowed down in an instant, and I told the doctor that I would pay whatever it took to treat it. In the coming days, I'll have the caretaker help my dad bathe properly. The doctor reassured me that although I'm in a vegetative state, my sense of hearing is still intact. Family members can chat with him more, and miracles may happen. I have always followed the doctor's orders, and since then, I have been constantly chattering in my father's ear every day. From the warm family moments we shared to the shocking and distressing discovery of their affair later on. I saw a tear roll down the corner of his eye, gently wiped it away, and whispered, "How wonderful it would be to go back to the old days, Dad." After being discharged from the hospital, I quietly reflected on the recent events that had occurred. From the moment I first discovered their affair, to the time I hired a male model to help them test their true love. From my reverence for my father, to the later calculation of the family property, and his unexpected fall from the stairs. I submitted my doubts, the testimony of my neighbors, and the subsequent recordings to the police, and the charge of intentionally killing my mother was established. Lily He and Aunt Lou were sentenced to life imprisonment and 15 years imprisonment respectively. I've heard that they've been accusing and verbally abusing each other in prison, with no trace of the deep mother-daughter bond they once had. Later, Aunt Lou was even beaten to the point that her nose was broken, and she was urgently sent out for medical treatment. Lily He was also properly punished, and I expect I won't be seeing her again. People do, heaven watches.